Hey guys, welcome back to WELFIE, another healthy holiday edition in my kitchen. I'm Doc Moyo, and today we're cooking one of my favorite dishes. We're doing seared ahi tuna. One of the main reasons we're doing this is to keep things heart healthy and to keep on our Mediterranean diet. We're trying to avoid eating red meat any more than twice a week. So changing it up and trying something new, like fish or chicken, turkey, even going vegetarian for a couple of days is very important. So we are going to take this piece of tuna over to the sink, give it a good wash, pat it to dry it, and while and after we do that, we will give our hands a good wash as well. All right, so once you got your tuna washed, you want to put it on some paper towel, just pat it to dry it. All right, so what you're going to want to do is just unwrap your tuna, place it back on its plate. And this just came out of the fridge maybe 5-10 minutes ago. We're gonna let that get up to room temperature. And tonight we are doing some asparagus, which we have here, as well as some zucchini. We are gonna roast that in the oven with some olive oil and some pepper and some Italian seasoning. Little trick when you're cooking asparagus, if you don't know where to cook it, just take one piece, give it a break, and where that piece snaps usually is where you want to be cutting your asparagus and the rest of them. So you can take that shorter piece, line them up, and just cut through all of them one time. You can actually save these end bits, which is great. If you put them in a little container, a piece of Tupperware, throw them in your freezer, and you can use these later for a vegetable stock. So trying to use everything that we use in the kitchen here. You guys can keep that in mind with any piece of vegetable that you sort of put aside, and we'll do that here tonight. Even with our zucchini here, we cut off these ends, and that can be kept as well. And with the zucchini, we're just going to quarter this. Asparagus takes a little longer to cook than some of these softer vegetables, so by keeping a softer vegetable like zucchini on the larger side, it'll cook at the same rate, more or less, with that asparagus. So the great thing about the meal that we have going on tonight is that it's very vegetable heavy. We're going to be doing the asparagus with the zucchini, and then on the side, while everything's cooking, we're actually going to do a raw chopped salad with tomatoes and peppers and broccoli. And that's going to bring in another serving of vegetables to our day and to our meal. And that's just the way that you could add these little things to fill out your plate, and also make sure you're scoring high on that Mediterranean score, which is so key and we want to keep in mind as we're eating heart healthy. So we got our zucchini done, we got our asparagus chopped, and what I like to do is we're going to now drizzle these with olive oil, is actually use the cooking or roasting pan that I'll be using to actually cook these. And you can actually layer the zucchini right on top of these or beside them, and grab your olive oil. You don't want to use too much olive oil. You can go ahead and just drizzle this right on top. And this is where you get your hands a little messy, a little oily, but you can rub that oil in and just mix that in together so all of the zucchini and all of the asparagus gets coated in the olive oil. And once again, I'm doing this in the pan because as we're coating this, all that oil that comes off of the vegetables is just gonna go right into the pan, but we're gonna use that to keep the pan a little slick so these don't stick too much and get everything ready for the stovetop and ready for the oven. And today we'll be using some Italian seasoning. I'm just going to sprinkle that on. As always, one of my favorites, black pepper. If you can, go for the fresh cracked black pepper as opposed to the pre-ground. That just gives it more pop, more flavor. And then another great salt substitute is garlic powder. I try to use this quite a bit, along with actually using whole garlics, which we'll toss in here as well. And garlic powder is a great way to add flavor without adding salt, so I highly recommend it. And we have our pieces of garlic here. We're gonna set this aside for a second. If you watch any of our other videos, you know we are big fans of garlic in this kitchen. Two ways that you can crush your garlic is one, place the flat of the knife directly on the garlic and just press down with the heel of your hand. And that'll help get the garlic out of the garlic skin. The other way, especially if it's a larger clove of garlic, is just use the heel of your hand itself. Just the pressure from that will usually pop these open. So we'll give that a try with this one here. So garlic has been shown to have great heart health benefits. There are a lot of studies that have come out examining what garlic does for the heart. And in general, a lot of these studies have shown that garlic is generally actually heart healthy and heart protective, helping with everything from cholesterol levels to how your body metabolizes energy to blood pressure. So it's a key ingredient that we like to use, and it's something that you can add to your meals to make sure that you're getting great heart health benefits from the food that we eat. So we're gonna get this started on the stove top, but we're gonna turn on our oven and put that to about 375 degrees Fahrenheit, and we'll finish it off in there. Because, as I mentioned, the garlic, or excuse me, the asparagus cooks a little slower, we're actually going to want to take the zucchini back out of this pan, and we'll actually take the asparagus out as well. And the reason we're doing this is because we want the pan to get a little bit hot, so when the asparagus gets in there, and we're going to get that asparagus cooking up from a hot surface as opposed to a cool one where it'll sort of start to steam. All right, so while we have that pan heating up, we are going to start preparing our tuna, and this is one of my favorite things to cook in the kitchen. So today, for the tuna, we're going to be using three to four main ingredients. The first is, once again, a little bit of this garlic powder. Second are sesame seeds. This is going to be a nice, delicious addition and add a great nutty flavor to the tuna. And third, fan favorite, the black pepper, as well as a little bit of olive oil on the tuna, but we're going to actually sear the tuna in the pan with vegetable oil. Once again, because of that smoke point, we want to get our pan nice and hot for the tuna, and we don't want a ton of smoke. And just coat both sides of your tuna with a little bit of olive oil. So we're using the garlic powder first, sprinkle that on top. We're going to crack some black pepper. And next up will be the sesame seeds. Before we get into this, my pan over here is getting nice and hot. I'm going to turn it down to about medium-high heat and get this asparagus in the pan. You're going to hear a pop and sizzle, I'm sure. Okay, so we have the asparagus in the pan now. It is getting those wonderful sear marks on it and frying up nicely. So get yourself a pair of tongs. This will help you work with the tuna without having to touch it with your hands. A little more garlic powder on this side and some additional pepper as well. And once again, similar to the pepper, you're going to want to be somewhat liberal with this, both sides. All right, so that's almost ready. You're going to want to get some pepper and the sesame seeds on the sides here as well. And we're going to work on that in a minute. But first, let's check on this asparagus. And this is a great time as well to get the zucchini in the pan. And this is starting to smoke a bit. We're going to turn down the heat on the stovetop. I'm going to focus on getting those grill marks on the asparagus and just letting the zucchini roast. So once you get your zucchini into the pan, you're going to want to add that garlic back into the pan as well. That's going to roast up nicely and just give a wonderful aroma and flavor to both the asparagus and the zucchini. So these are going to go into the oven at about 375 degrees. So while that is in the oven, getting roasted, we're going to start to heat up our cast iron skillet and get that ready, nice and hot for our ahi tuna and to sear it. So a little trick when you're cooking, if you want to know if your pan's getting hot, is actually head over to your sink, get a little bit of water in your hand, and just splash it into the pan. When that pan pops and sizzles like that, is it's nice and hot. Once again, we're using vegetable oil for this part. The reason we're doing that is just once again the smoke point. We don't want to create too much smoke. You're going to have a little bit of smoke with this. It's part of the process of searing. You want to keep that heat high so you can get high heat on the outside of the tuna without cooking the middle too much. See already that our oil has a little bit of the shimmer to it, which is perfect. When you're putting things in a hot pan like this, always place them towards you first and then let them roll away. Get that right back up there. When you're cooking ahi tuna, you want to be very focused on the tuna. You don't want to cook it too long because it can definitely start to cook too much. I like my tuna a little pink in the middle with that nice sear on the outside. You can do it any way you like, but you want to stay by the stove, make sure you're keeping an eye on it and an eye on the clock. Given the heat of cast iron pans, as well as the heat of these electric stove tops, you're gonna wanna sear this for probably about 3 to 4 minutes each side, keeping in mind that when it comes off the stove, it's gonna continue to cook and continue to sear. It's been on there for about a minute. I'm keeping an eye on the clock here. We'll give it another 2 minutes or so, and then we'll flip it over 3 to 4 minutes on the other side, and you're done. All right, so this has been on there for about 3 minutes. We're gonna flip this over and get the other side seared as well. Give the pan a little shake to make sure we get that. Wonderful things about roasting vegetables is they're always ready to eat. So you can never really overcook your vegetables or undercook them. It all depends on your preference, really. So if you want vegetables a little crunchier, you can take them out early. And if you want to give them some extra time, get them a little softer, maybe a little more flavorful, you can just take them out a little later as well. So with our tuna, we are gonna have a little soy sauce mixed in with these delicious, delicious green onions. So while that's cooking up, and that's probably got about a minute left, we're just gonna chop our green onions. That's about done. Make a little room for our tuna. This is ready to come right off the stove. So once that tuna is off the stove, you're gonna wanna let it rest for about 5 minutes before you cut into it. This is a great time to check on the vegetables that are in the oven, as well as finish preparing your soy sauce and green onions, and start to chop those vegetables for that wonderful chopped salad that we're gonna have as a starter or on the side. So you're gonna wanna move the vegetables around a little bit in the pan, especially a pan like this where we can get those really nice grill marks. Just using a fork, you can test whether you think your zucchini or your asparagus are done. If you're feeling a little resistance as you push through, they probably need a little bit longer. So I'm feeling that little bit of resistance, so these are gonna go back in the oven for a little bit more time. All right, so while that's back in the oven, we're gonna finish off doing our green onions. And there's really not that much to this. You're gonna take a little olive oil. There's not much to this. You're gonna take a little soy sauce and add that in the bowl. You don't wanna use too much. And when you can, especially with the soy sauce, you wanna opt for the low sodium, low salt soy sauce. And you can also add a little green onions right on top. So there's probably about 2 minutes left on the vegetables, and this is a great time to start that salad. It's gonna be a quick chop through our pre-washed vegetables, and really they're just gonna go right in the bowl, and you're gonna add a little olive oil, maybe a little balsamic to make a little vinaigrette, and that's it. All right, thanks for joining us for our taste test and our breakdown of what we did tonight. We have roasted asparagus, roasted zucchini, chopped broccoli, bell peppers with some cherry tomatoes, as well as seared ahi tuna. This is a delicious meal for the weeknight or the weekend. It's quick and easy to make. It takes 2 pans, an oven, and a stovetop, so you can definitely do this at home. I'm gonna jump in and see how this tastes and see if there's any changes that I recommend for when you guys are cooking it at home. So a little bite of this tuna, dip it in our soy sauce. That is perfect. I'm not bragging, it just came out really well. So, enjoy this meal. It's something you can share with your family, with your friends, with your loved ones. It's heart healthy, so it's good for them and it's good for you. So, all the best and enjoy.